so glad. I am not encouraged.
All right, everyone.
I feel like, you know what?
Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. So let me just introduce myself. My name is Susan Rodriguez McDowell. I'm elected by the people of District 6. And I do have the honor of serving as chair of the Economic Development Committee. We want to welcome the public who have been provided a call-in number to access this meeting. The agenda was sent out to those already on the distribution list. If you would like to be on the distribution list or get electronic copies of any of the presentation materials today, please make those requests via email to Megan Witt. Her email address is megan.witt@mecnc.gov. So we will begin today's meeting by introducing those of us in the room, and then we will see who is joining us remotely. So I'll start with commissioners, and I will start with the committee members first. To my right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Jarrell. I've been elected by the people of District 4.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Laura Meyer and I represent District 5.
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Altman, County Commissioner serving at large.
And today we have the pleasure of a couple of other commissioners who are joining us. Would like for them to introduce themselves. I'll start on my right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name's Arthur Griffin. I'm a county commissioner at large, all of Mecklenburg County.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mecklenburg County Commissioner Elaine Powell. I represent District 1 and serve as Vice Chair of the Board.
Thank you. And we also have many staff at the table today. So let's go ahead and introduce starting over here, or the County Manager first.
Hi, good afternoon, County Manager Dina Diorio.
Good afternoon, Leslie Johnson, Deputy County Manager.
Keisha Whitley, Economic Development.
Agustin Velasquez, Economic Development.
Clay Andrews, Economic Development.
Shahid Rana, Economic Development.
John Walton, Economic Development.
Awesome. All right. We also have some other elected officials in the room. I would like to make sure we introduce, actually only one. Okay. Would you like to introduce yourself? All right, awesome. Thank you for being with us today. So let's just go ahead and introduce the other folks that are in the room who are our guests today.
Ford Perry with BMOC Capital.
Walter Price, Moore Van Allen on behalf of BMOC.
I'm Mohammed Janatian with the Hospitality and Tourism Alliance.
Great, thank you. And we all know Joe Bruno, he needs no introduction, but we have a lot of folks joining us remotely as well. So Keisha, would you like to take over?
Online, we have Brendan Pierce, Britt Clampett, Ellie Fester, Fran West, Fred Atimo, Frida Ochoa, Janelle Rosales, Monica Greer, Steve Harrison, Tammy Thompson, Timothy Tibbs, and then we have WSOC editor and Raleigh Conference Room.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So next we will entertain a motion to approve the June 6, 2023 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved by Commissioner Altman, seconded by Commissioner Meyer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes have been unanimously approved. Let's see, I will now recognize Deputy County Manager Leslie Johnson to introduce the next agenda item.
Yes, good afternoon. Today, we're going to be providing you an update on Project Breakpoint. I'll allow the team to pull up the slide deck for you. But today I'm going to provide highlights from the Q&A document that was received from Project Breakpoint team and forwarded to you, the Economic Development Committee, on Thursday, June 8th. You got it. Awesome. Thank you. I'll start with a quick overview timeline of the conversations to date, and then transition to highlighting the public-private commitments, economic impact, provide insight and guidance as it relates to this project, the next steps, and today's requested action. As a quick overview of what has transpired to date, There was a city-county joint meeting on May 10th, 2023. You, along with City Council's Economic Development Committee members, received a formal presentation of Project Breakpoint, and city-county committee members and staff posed questions and introduced thoughts for consideration as it relates to public benefits and the commitments. At the May 16th Economic Development Committee meeting, we staff recapped the county's articulated broad areas of interest as it relates to public benefits for the community and received additional comments and suggestions from you that we were to take on for your endorsement for conversations with the BMOC Capital team as it relates to public benefit. Mecklenburg County and BMOC Capital met on June 2nd and initiated some more in-depth conversations on those public benefits and their commitments to our community. On June 6th, Economic Development Committee staff informed you that we met with the BMOC Project Breakpoint team and provided a cursory overview of that meeting. Then on June 8th, we emailed you the Q&A summary that you have as part of your packet today and that you received electronically today. This document, as you'll see noted on their front page, was committed in response to questions you posed or were posed by city and county staff as it relates to Project Breakpoint. The Q&A includes responses to general questions as well as highlights commitments aligned to community impact, economic impact, workforce development, environmental considerations, and long-term presence. One area that is of particular importance from an equity lens is this outstanding community asset and amenity and ensuring that it's available to all, to include but not limited to programming, access to site, and usage of the courts. With regards to youth and community program, BMOC's strategy is twofold. They have pledged to commit a full-time community program director, as well as establish a local community advisory board with representation from the Charlotte's West Side community, the county's Park and Rec Department, CMS, as well as include tennis experts and possibly others. We believe this approach will yield the best outcome because it accounts for dedicated community engagement and representation, thereby ensuring that the program and offerings reflect the broad interests of the community. As for the layout of the site, the conceptual plan includes a park, and the site integrates with planned trail connections. That is, for those who may be familiar, there's the Mount Olive Church Road Urban Trail, as well as the Beaver Dam Greenway, Beaver Dam Creek Greenway. Hence, there's agreement to work collaboratively in the design of these elements and the trailheads and the like. As it relates to public court availability, the project team understood our perspective about public use of courts and our desire in not offering a commitment at a macro level that potentially translates to limited access, meaning possibly access at off-peak times or off seasons. So we discussed committing to a guaranteed number of courts that are available at any given time. As illustrated above, the commitment is always to have 10 courts, plus or minus 1 or 2, available with one exception, and that is in the month of August. And that's when they're preparing and as well as hosting the Masters 1000 tournament. You can see in this depiction, in August, it's red, so those are the days that would not be available. The other months you'll see there's either green or yellow. The green is indicating those instances where there will at least be 20 courts available. The yellow indicating where there'll at least be 10 courts available, recognizing there may be other tournaments that may be happening on the campus, yet they will still ensure that the public has access for their play. So what does it cost to play on these courts? The cost structure that they have arranged is modeled under both memberships and drop-in or use rates. There will be indoor-outdoor memberships and outdoor-only memberships. The hourly rates for outdoor courts will be generally comparable to the charges and the fees that we have for Mecklenburg County, i.e. through the Park and Rec Department. There will also be a distinction of county and non-county rates, recognizing if we are a partner in this project, we want to ensure that our residents get the optimal return on investment compared to those that are our neighbors, but yet again, accessible for all. And in an effort to ensure all have access from an affordability perspective, BMOC has committed to establish free membership modeled based on income. So what would occur is they would work collaboratively with us to establish a framework of how to determine what is the financial base for where there should be like a scholarship membership that's given to individuals. And then they would have that membership for a year and they would be able to use the public courts at no cost. Economic impact. This economic impact at this time has been reviewed from two lenses. BMOC Capital has contracted with JT Enterprise LLC to do a market assessment. And the county's economist, in partnership with the economic development team, has done a preliminary REMI analysis, and I'll reinforce preliminary. The JT Enterprise market assessment takes into account multiple things. First, it says that the tournament is anticipated to draw over 350 attendees annually, creating an economic boost of over 275 million in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. Attracting ticket buyers from all 50 states and 39 countries, it positions Charlotte as the international stage. In addition, the campus will host an array of other events, including amateur and professional tournaments, concerts, and festivals. The diverse programming is projected to further elevate the economic impact to over 300 million and support nearly 2,500 jobs within Mecklenburg County. If construction of the campus is taken in consideration, then the impact exceeds 1 billion and the total job creation is projected to be about 6,700. And again, this is the analysis that came from JT Enterprise. With regards to REMI, the county's financial tool that we utilize, we took the following things in consideration. The assumptions are only on real and business personal property that we would see that will be the net increase. It also, instead of while it was projected that there were 350,000 visitors in that 2-week period, we took an ultra conservative model and did only 1,700. We split it in half just to say what happened. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What did I say? Oh, my bad. Yes, 170,000. 170,000. And then the spend per person is about $558.70. And the estimated contribution from the county in this model shows 30 million of one time. Again, there could be alternate ways that it can be done, but for right now, we're just testing the model to really determine, so when do we get the return investment? So unlike the traditional ways that you've seen the REMI model where we're showing payment on an annual basis, this one just assumes in this one scenario that it is one-time payment. So that's why you see the spike of the 30 million at that one point. Then you see it leveling itself out because there's no additional payment. But what you see is that if we want to say, well, when do we get that return on investment? It will be in year 19. And that's a very important number that you'll understand for something else that they've noted with regards to their commitment. Now, again, these assumptions are very conservative. It does not take into account other types of revenue that could be streamed from this, this investment in this campus. It does not account for sales tax or other related revenue streams, such as concerts, festivals, or competitive tournaments. It only looks at the revenue stream that was identified solely from the 2-week Masters 1000 tournament. And again, this is the conservative model, so you can just kind of see what it looks like in the minimalist perspective. And again, only property and personal taxes are taken in consideration and half the estimates for the attendees. Workforce development. So what they anticipate at the threshold for the number of jobs that will be on the campus year-round would be 60 full-time year-round jobs, but then there will be additional staffing that would happen throughout the season depending on the events, concerts, and the like. The living wage, they guarantee giving living wage for employees with the minimum based on where we are today in salaries would be $25 an hour. The MWE participation would be 20% participation in the design and construction of the facility of all publicly funded, all publicly received funds. The vendor participation aspect that I think is important that we had conversations with them on is that they want to ensure that there's commitment beyond just the construction phase, but to be taken into account other types of things. For example, when you're looking at local vendors, caterers, marketers, photographers, any other types of things that you're trying to ensure, as well as the diversity of the types of programming that happens within or on that site. Environmental considerations. The Envision Tennis Campus does align to the River District's mission of blending urban life with a lure of parks and trails and forests and river access, as well as ensuring there's inherent open space, as well as in the natural environment. The design of this campus emphasizes a park-like ambiance. You can see that they're trying to ensure that trees, landscaping, or canopies are maintained, not necessarily making this of a campus that's completely concrete. The team is committed to uphold sustainable construction practices to mitigate the environmental footprint. And these are things that, as I'm emphasizing, are conversations that myself and Shah had with them back at that meeting, and just kind of asking them to consider this and consider that. And so these are things that they agreed and committed to that was otherwise may not have shown up if we didn't have those discussions. In addition, the team has agreed to conduct a comprehensive tree study to better understand and strategize how they can maximize the preservation of the existing green spaces. The long-term presence, again, this is where I made the reference to the 19 years where you see the return. The BBOC Capital team believes they will be here for 25 plus years. So what we're doing is making a long-term presence and commitment to our community. They envision that it will be longer than that. But what we will say from the financial model is that we will yield our financial return just in the most conservative way prior to their minimal level of commitment. So some insights and guidance. As we are aware, this tournament or this site would heighten our national and international visibility. The tournament itself, Masters 1000, has partner in cities that include Paris, Monte Carlo, Montreal, Toronto, Shanghai, Madrid, Rome, Miami, and Los Angeles. Currently, the tournament attracts ticket buyers from 39 countries with representation from multinational firms regularly attending the events each year. Hosting such an event will place Charlotte within the esteemed echelon of international locales that host the Masters 1000. We will be among the distinguished list that includes Los Angeles, Miami, Rome, Madrid, Paris, Shanghai, Monte Carlo, Montreal, and Toronto, as I've already noted. The River District official groundbreaking was on March 29th of this year. And so you can see that this site is active in its construction and development. On Monday, June 12th, the city of Charlotte voted unanimously to authorize the city manager to negotiate an agreement between the city and BMOC Sports to cover construction costs up to $65 million as it relates to this tennis campus in the River District. This is a competitive, and I will repeat, a competitive project. While BMOC Capitals currently host the Masters 1000 in Cincinnati and is looking at other sites, which includes Charlotte. What I will say is Ohio has, the state of Ohio has made a commitment to match whatever North Carolina chooses to put in as an incentive package. Now, last week, it was like 50 million they were recommending to do. Then after the 50 million, they then said, well, we're going to hopefully leverage some of the state super funds to possibly get it to 150 million. And so they understand the significance and the economic benefit of this site to their community, and they're doing their best to see what they can do to keep it here. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for our community. And I would strongly say that this is an investment that may be worth our while to pursue. The other thing that I would like to recap as it relates to the economic and community benefits, because it's more than the economic piece. We know that there will be financial yields that we'll get from this. I'm still on the previous slide, but it's okay for that. But we know that we will have at least the Masters 1000 potentially here, which is at Western and Southern Open. In addition, they have discussed about free and affordable youth programming based on input from local advisory board that includes county representation. They've also committed to have public use of courts year-round, except for the month of August. The team has committed to uphold sustainable construction practices to mitigate the environmental footprint. In addition, the team has agreed to conduct a comprehensive tree study and adopt strategies that maximize the preservation of existing green spaces. And the site will include connections to the Mount Olive Church Road Urban Trail, as well as the Beaver Dam Creek Greenway. The last thing that I will say is, in my honest opinion, in the collaborations and conversations that we have had to date, they have been very willing to hear our interests and come up with solutions or things that they could commit to support this project, as well as support our public benefits and things that we would ultimately like to see. I would even say that in some regards, some of the dialogue has been almost a model for that type of engagement. We've had other projects that have noted public use, and they may say, oh, 20% of the time, and you're not really getting the nuts and bolts of what that looks like for transparency for our community. You may have people that say, oh, we're willing to commit to the environment, but you don't see the commitment of what that looks like tactically. And so for their willingness to give a little bit more detail to support it, I think has just been a good collaborative discussion as we have been trying to do assess this not only from the economic impact, but for the more broader community and public engagement or commitment for the benefits for our community. The next steps, what we would have to do is we would then solicit your additional comments and ultimately get Economic Development Committee approval to advance to the full board. Once we receive that approval, we would then take it to the full board of county commissioners. From there, we would then be positioned to also continue the negotiations and ongoing types of things that we would want to continue to see. Again, we've had one conversation. We could have several more, but we need direction before they can commit to make those more in-depth conversations. The other thing that I would like to note in regards to negotiations and ongoing updates, I said up to 30 million. And one of the things that we have to do that we cannot do at this time is we'd have to work backwards to ensure that the dollar amount supports public benefit, right? So I have to have a better understanding about what is the cost for the park? What is the park for the construction of Greenway and the trailhead? What is the public use? There's more things that we would have to further refine to get to that number, which is why it's up to 30 million. Notwithstanding that, they can't give me any more of that detail because that means they have to make the commitment to being here and the sites and stuff like that. So that's kind of why it's important and why the state has made some commitments. The state has, I didn't mention that in the slide that I skipped already. The state has made a commitment of at least 25 million for this project. And I mentioned already the city of Charlotte has made a commitment of over 65 million for this project, at least 65 million for this project at this time as well. So what we're asking for this board, and of course, recommend support of Project Breakpoint with financial support not to exceed up to $30 million and to advance the request to the full Board of County Commissioners seeking its approval to include directing the county manager to negotiate and execute a contract. I'll pause and see one, if Shahid Rahman has any additional conversations or things that he'd like to share since he has been part of the dialogue that we've had with Project Breakpoint at this time, and or the county manager.
He knows when to hold him.
So we'll welcome the opportunity to answer any questions. Again, this presentation was it's not 100% of the things that were in here as responses to questions, but it represents a subsection of the things that when we had the meetings and conversations with you, the things that you had said yes, that you wanted to ensure that we elevated as part of those conversations. It reflects those additional commitments that they were willing to make as relates to those things that we addressed with them thus far.
Okay. Thank you. So before we go through and go and ask questions, could you please just the slide before this? I feel like that was a little fast. I need you to do that again. As far as
Next
the
steps.
30, like what you talked about backing into the numbers.
So there's the next steps. It could possibly be a couple different ways that could be ordered, but the first thing of being ordered is getting the endorsement that there's support from the Economic Development Committee for this project. The dollar amount that has been asked is 30 million. But whenever we do any of these types of projects, we have to ensure that the dollar amount is, that we can ensure that there's the public benefit to go to those costs, right?
Right.
So what we would want to understand is, okay, let me see your project pro forma and understand what's the true cost for construction. What's the construction cost for the park? What's the construction for possibly now? Because they weren't necessarily doing the trailhead and stuff like that. That's something we have since asked, right? Can you make the connection to the greenways and the trailheads and stuff like that?
When you say the park,
Mhm.
are you talking about this entire thing?
No,
the 53 acres?
No, there's
or-
an open space within the 56 acres. They are identifying. And it's yet to figure out what the true acreage is. Is it 10 acres? It's 7 to 10 acres is roughly behind the envelope of what the conceptual diagram may illustrate of what that park is. And so it's a green open space, and we don't know yet until we have more conversations. Is it going to be a passive space? Is it going to be what is it going to look like? And what's the cost that we anticipate to construct something like that can be utilized by the public? And that would help inform us. Is it 10 million, 15 million, 20 million? So we'll take those types of costs into consideration to better understand, is that $30 million the right number? Or should it be 28? Or should it be 25? So that's what I'm saying. We'll have to back into that number. And I can't start backing into those numbers until they know, yeah, there is a commitment and interest of the county to be here, because that means they have to go to the next level of showing the pretty pictures that you see now, to making these additional investments and working with their design team and the like to get these other nuances that I'm requesting in order to get to that place.
Okay, and so just lastly, before we go through questions, can you speak to, are you talking about a TIG? Are you talking about, what's the vehicle for this?
That's a great question. And I would say the answer is unknown at this time, because we need to know what it is. If it's 5 million, you may say, oh, we can take it out of XYZ element of P. If it's a different number, we may have to leverage something else. Now, what I have had conversations with them on is that I don't anticipate, if it was a one-time that we had to do on the scheme of different types of financial mechanisms. If we went to the one-time one, okay, versus a TIG or something like that, but if we did the one-time, because it will align to construction, it will not show up in the next fiscal year. It will not show up in FY24. We're still in FY23. It will not show up in FY24. It most likely will not show up into FY25. So whereas the state's commitment of funding and how they're planning on using that is to help with the design, they're going to need that money now, right? For the construction of things that we're talking about is potentially could wait later. So I have asked them, could we be last in?
Okay.
But again, can't commit to anything. I said, but if our board does support it, can we be last in? Would you be willing to entertain other types of payment? Could we do in-kind? Could we do TIG? They haven't said no, but we can't get any further until we know, yes, that there is this interest and commitment to be here, and then we can flush through those. And as we flush through those, we'll bring that stuff back to you and let you have an understanding of it, but we can't negotiate. We've reached kind of almost our ceiling of what we can negotiate until they know, yes, they're here, then they can make the investments of all this other stuff that we're probably going to ask for.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at this time, I'm going to ask the committee members for their questions and comments. Would you like to go first, sir?
So thank you very much. What I'm hearing you say is that you're looking for a vote today that indicates our support for up to $30 million commitment in some shape or form, but the details of the green commitments and all of the commitments that we wanted are not fully hammered out. So you sort of need a provisional yes or no while we don't have all the details of the things that are important to us. Is that right?
Correct. Say, for example, the tree canopy study. Well, they can start doing, if they know they're going to be here, then they can start doing the tree canopy study. Then I can get to the place to say, can we say we're going to preserve X amount of trees? But I can't get that other more specificity until we get your commitment to say, yes, we're willing to be there.
Okay, well, my view is that, this is bringing an incredible amenity to our community that's going to provide thousands of jobs to our residents. And it's going to bring, a business that is going to infuse hundreds of millions of dollars into our economy, which helps us to fund all kinds of important county services that individual homeowners and taxpayers are not going to have to pay. And so I am very positively oriented towards it, and I appreciate you considering Mecklenburg County and Charlotte very much so, and I intend to be supporting it today. But as you continue to negotiate the details, it is very important to me that you negotiate the strongest possible environmental investments and protections. That's our job. That's the county's job. And so I know you will be fierce in that, Dr. Johnson, and I look forward to getting updates on that. On the workforce development, I appreciate the information provided. When I talk about workforce development commitments that I'm looking for, it's great, which you talked about, living wages and MWSBE and vendor participation and bringing so many jobs here. But what I'm really additionally looking for, what I'm specifically looking for is a commitment to reach out to communities that have less access to good paying jobs, and to mentor and create programs so that there's a pipeline for employment to specifically benefit communities that have had less access to that kind of upward economic mobility. So that's a specific sort of commitment that I don't really see in your paperwork, and I have a good feeling that that's something you would be amenable to, but I'd like for that to go on the list for future discussion as you go forward. So Dr. Johnson, I don't really like the way the REMI model was created, because it's so conservative as to not really tell me what's the likely benefit. If we can pull that up again. My understanding is the REMI model only captures the 2 weeks of the tournament.
It comes to the 2 weeks of the tournament, right? And so I don't know if Shaw has an additional convert, because he's had conversations.
So the
Go ahead.
REMI model, it puts out what you put in. It was a decision between myself and the economist to go extremely conservative.
Mhm.
So we could have added in 350,000 guests in that 2-week period instead of 170,000. We could have decided to add in all of the sales tax revenue as well. What we wanted to do is take an ultra conservative approach to the REMI model. And if that still has a net benefit for us, then we know that all of the other unknown variables would essentially pan out. So we wanted to take a conservative approach, present that conservative approach, and to let you know that we feel comfortable moving forward with an ultra conservative approach. So it's not necessarily REMI.
Yeah, I hear you. But just so I can understand just how incredibly conservative this is, it's only 2 weeks.
Mhm.
It's half the projected number of people to attend a 2-week event. Really, you'll have year-round activity there, plus all kinds of manners. So, I mean, to me, this is just so conservative. It probably would have been beneficial to have one that is not so conservative so that we could be closer to reality. Because to me, this is just constricted by 50 weeks.
And what I would share with you is the other perspective around that is, so we could plug in the consultant's numbers that they used, right? But that doesn't give you the independent, even though they had an independent consultant, it doesn't give you the true independent perspective, right? And so the thing that we wanted to do is, as Shah had mentioned, we wanted to be ultra conservative to say, how long will we get if we did all pay out at one time, what will it take before we see our return on investment? So that was the first check that we were really trying to say, oh, we'll see our return on investment after 18 years, and they're going to at least be here 25. So we know we're going to be, on the positive for our investment to this project.
And
So that was the objective of what we were trying to achieve in this round. Now, as we know more details, we can be able to put more input into the model to refine it. But I don't want to just say because a consultant gave me numbers, I'm supposed to enter their numbers into our system. And absent of us delving down there, I think we will be doing more refinement as this project moves forward to try to see what else other things look like, or what are the others, depending on how we choose, what are the options of how we could fund it, the model will look different.
so what is the mechanism ensuring that they would stay here at least 19 years?
Oh, well, in all of our agreements, we have clawbacks.
Okay.
So if they left before then, they would have to pay us
Okay,
back.
and then my final question, is it, you said you expect 300 million annual revenue and 2,500 jobs to be generated, I believe is what you said. But then I heard you say $1 billion, and that included the building of
The
the
construction,
construction.
the cost of the industry, the ecosystem that would be enhanced just by the phase when they're in construction.
So does the 1 billion include the 300 million?
It
annual?
does.
Oh, okay, so the 1 billion is over what time period?
The 1 billion probably would be over a 2-year period or so, just because of the
I
fact that construction is
Takes that long to build.
12 to 18
So
months.
it'd be 1 or 2 year, $1 billion impact, and after that, it would drop down to $300 million a year in annual impact.
Minimum. Mhm.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you. So real quickly, get this out of the way. When will, if we approve this to go to the board, when will we vote on it? For the full board?
That's another good question. You have a summer hiatus, so the earliest would be July, and then the next
July.
time would be August, the first meeting, the
The
August.
July 6th?
Yeah, that would be the earliest. And then the next one would be the meeting in August.
Okay. And you just said 2,500 jobs. That's not permanent jobs. That's construction.
It's a
But
host of things. It's
This events, construction,
right.
Contracted out.
to
employed.
support the actual facility. So when you think about when events come, wayfinders, ticket folks, parking lot, food and beverage and the like, so.
Okay. Part-time.
Season.
Well,
Part-time,
it's the
seasonal,
indirect-
kind
it's
of
the-
part-
kind of like your indirect jobs that you would be-
Contracted out to, yeah.
other work that will grow because the facility is there.
Okay.
Just like you have janitorial services, you have event services, and then so, but the direct site would have 60, and then all those other ones are infused because of the site being there.
Okay. Has there been, or is there going to be a study planned on how this will impact the Catawba River? This particular project, not Crescent, not that side.
Well, this one isn't located on the river. This is this particular, where this is on the site is more inbound than coastbound.
Well, that's actually my next question is, can you pull up one of the maps and
Unless you can
point
go
to
to
me where
could
the
you go to
river is?
or go to Polaris? Can you go to Polaris? Shaw, since you're on that side, you may need to help her get to the site really quickly.
I was fine with the,
Okay, but I don't know if you'll be able to see where
okay. Well, if you could just kind of give me an idea of, where it is. I don't want you to go, I don't want you to go through all that.
It's directly across the street from the airport.
It's
left of
closer to the
485.
airport, they're in the river.
The tennis.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
I don't think I've ever seen like a
It-
whole,
It's closer to the interstate. It's closer to 485.
okay,
The parcel is near Dixie River and 485.
okay.
So it's more inbound than it is on the coastline of the part of the river district boundaries. So it's
Okay.
farther east than it is west.
So if we approve this, when will we hear the specifics about the community programming? Like, what are the ideas? Are there ideas on the table now? Do they need to get a feel for the community? What's the timeline for that?
I don't think I have not heard a timeline based on the conversations I had with them at this time. What I think they believe is the first thing that they would want to do is once they are committed in being at this site, they would hire the community outreach director position, and that allow that person to drive setting up a local advisory board, getting community input, and really trying to figure out what's the programming. We have a little bit of runway because if they decide to come here, so say let's go July, August, depending once if we get a official approval. then at that time, what they would be able to do is start standing up their staffing, what they can phase in, designing like. And so some of that community engagement like probably would occur when while they're paralleling with construction, because the programming wouldn't start till the site is built. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
okay.
I understand that.
Okay.
And so, the community programming, our environmental concerns, their commitment to the environment, all of that, everything they say they're gonna do. And if things don't happen, is there gonna be, can we say we're out?
I would imagine in how you construct your contract,
Mhm.
just like you have clawback calls, you can have things in there to ensure their commitment and have checks and balances to ensure they execute those commitments. And legally, what that language looks like, we'll definitely consult with the attorney, but I'm sure there's ways that in everything that we try to do, we try to ensure that we have accountability
Okay,
and ensure that they commit to what they're saying they're accomplishing.
okay. Thank you. That's all.
There's your map, just.
Oh.
In case you have any more
What's the,
questions based on that.
Did you highlight this the
Can you
parcel?
see it?
Oh, no, they're yellow. So we're.
It's up there in yellow.
Shaw, do you have like a pointy thing?
Yeah, do you have a,
Right there,
your little red thing?
that yellow.
That's,
It's the yellow part.
It's, where's Dixie River Road?
Yeah, you're saying find Dixie River
Road, and then it's kind of,
Still a critical watershed. There's Dixie.
what was that?
yes, yeah, because the house is over there, so they are.
Okay.
So the green part is the 53 acres.
So the green parts of 53 acres?
Oh, great. Will you zoom out now?
Okay,
Now
got
that
it.
we have a pointer?
Yeah. I've got my eye on that.
So where's
See.
See, go further out.
It's
Or click, click, click.
wow.
It's out, so you see this river.
Okay, okay. Okay. Where's Crescent Properties? Where's all that?
It
All the-
aligns the river.
All to the left, to the river.
To the left of the right. Mhm.
All right, thank you. I appreciate y'all going through all that trouble.
But I wanted you to see that it wasn't really near it. There's a creek that goes through it, which is where the Greenway path
Right.
is supposed to go through. And that's why we want to work collaboratively with them,
Right.
because it's on our master plan, but that doesn't mean they have to be cooperative to say that they will allow the Greenway to go there, but they have agreed to do that. So that's the things that we want to be able to continue to have those conversations at, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to. They can just do what they want. It's their parcel, right?
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Jarrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think my colleagues asked some really great questions and help us level set where we are. One of the things I think sometimes we get sticker shock when you look at certain numbers, but I think if we're going to be in the economic development space, it's important for us to know what we're getting with respect to return on investment. And I think when you look at some of the investments that we've made previously, this certainly gives us a tremendous return on investment over time. I mean, I've raised my hand for a lot of deals over here that don't come close to this. Also, with respect to just our ask, I think some of the things that we've asked for in the past, we've gotten a lot of pushback, a lot of haziness and fuzziness. So I do appreciate the answers to the Q&A. And I appreciate staff going back and really interpreting what's important to us and what's important to the community if the residents are going to make an investment like this. With that said, obviously the devil's always in the details, but I think people have been operating in really good faith so far, and I certainly like what I see. I do need us to talk about programming as well when we get to that point. One group that's been left out are our seniors. And so it's very, very important that our seniors are carved in to this space some way, somehow, that we're making an investment in our seniors to have access. Also, when we talk about this need-based access, I really want to, and if we could pull that slide up, please. It's important that this board understand when we say $0 per year, how many people are we talking about? Is there a limit? What does that look like moving forward? That's really, really important. It can't be obviously 10, 20, it needs to be a significant number that we need to solve to. around that, because the area that we're going into, this can have a significant impact in that area. And I would also like to see if staff is, I don't know if this is even possible. We've never asked this previously, but Dina, I don't know, is it possible for us to be able to isolate the impact, the economic impact on a particular area? So we said people on the west side within a certain radius, what that impact, the economic impact looks like on them?
I don't know. We'd have to go back and check with our economists to see if you can isolate economic impact by geographic area or zip code. I don't know for sure, but we can check.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have to have a motion for that, but nonetheless, I would be curious to know, because again, when an area can get a specific amount of lift, I think it also shows some additional community benefit there as well. The other component that I'm glad we teed up as well as this MWBE component, vendor participation. Obviously 20% is going to be the minimum. It's just the floor. It's not the goal, the ultimate goal for us at any given point. That's the bare minimum. So, I wanted to tee that up in addition to $25 an hour. Is that what I heard you say for livable wages?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, the hits keep on coming when you think about some of the elements of the deal. Obviously, the environmental aspect is critical for us. And I know we can't do anything with respect to that until there's more of a commitment to move forward. So at the end of the day, we can trust, but we have to verify for sure. But overall, I probably have not seen a better deal since I've been sitting on the board with respect to economic impact, revenue, and what this could potentially mean to funding programs that we want and initiatives that we want to support as a board, and hopefully that future boards will continue to try to support. So I certainly, with respect to the parameters that we've set, finding out additional questions, I certainly want to support bringing this to our community. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Durrell. I will just ask you to go to slide 17. And I have to concur with a lot that has already been said. I really do appreciate the openness that I have felt from the design team and the folks, the BMOC folks around trying to meet the requests that we have, made. I do feel that there's been a lot of response to our concerns, and that is very much appreciated. One thing on this slide that I want to emphasize is the not to exceed 30 million. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because I've heard it floated that there's a 40 million ask to the county. And I just want to say, is that going to be a surprise that comes at us later? Or is this really, can I take this at face value?
The ask to the county was originally between 25 and 30 million, with the last ask being 30. There has not been a request to be 40.
Okay, so that's a rumor. The 40 is just a rumor. Okay, great. That is really
I
helpful.
know where the 40 probably could have come from. If you do the math, if the county puts in 30, it's a $10 million. So because the state has already made their commitment, city of Charlotte has made their commitment. So you do the math, there's a $10 million delta gap. And so others then have say, does that mean the county is given 40?
Okay.
The ask to us has not been 40.
Okay, great. So I think the last thing I want to do is really emphasize the environmental impact piece. And I'm inclined to support the deal. So if you want us to indicate our support, I'm indicating my support. But one of the things that I think this board is extremely important to us, that we know that this is our only time of leverage Okay. And something that we're extremely passionate about is the environmental goals exceeding those of the state requirements. And so I think that you share that goal with us. And so I understand, that you are a fighter in that category on behalf of the board in many spaces. And I appreciate that you would be in this space as well. I would love to know if you can speak any more about that and what sort of parameters we could expect to ask for. Like, I know many of us have gone down the river with the Lake Wiley Marine Commission as they've talked about runoff and all kinds of things that come along with construction. And I know it looks really far in the map, but it's really not far in real life. There will be an impact. And so if you could speak a little bit about that and what could we expect as far as rigorous environmental impact controls.
So again, it's a little early, but what I will share at the more broadly is one of the things, 3 things that they were responsive to what we have discussed thus far was 1, they added that did not exist, that they're going to be intentional about the construction and design to use sustainable practices and what they recommend and trying to use best practices and the like. And I even started talking about the materials of the courts and stuff. So we really tried to say, okay, not to say it, what does it look like, right? And so we started using examples like, okay, the construction materials, how you decide to choose to lay out the site, those types of considerations. One is, the other piece of it is, again, the master plan for the Greenway has part of the walkway or the urban trail having that connection, which wasn't on their radar necessarily to do it. They're saying, yes, we'll make that commitment to make that part of our design and construction and everything like that. The other piece of it, we talk about the existing tree canopy and how do you preserve, when knowing development will occur, but how do we do our best to preserve a certain percentage? Well, are there ones that are better suited or not, which is why we said we'll start with the tree canopy study so that we can better understand what is the state of that canopy and which ones are the ones that we need to try to hold in play. And I don't know if we at the tree canopy study would better get us to a place where we could articulate a percentage and be able to be transparent of what that looks like. I think we will be in a better suit to be able to, and they have allowed us to be, they're willing to allow us to be collaborative with them in the design, right? So when you're talking about the green space and the greenway and the like, allowing us to kind of be able to, your mad scientist, Bert Lynn, being able to have someone there that has the expert in the lens that we have to be contributor into that process as well.
Great. And what about things like electric vehicles, like being used on the site and solar and that kind of thing? Are they designing that into their plan?
We haven't asked specifically on those things. We just said, could we start talking about broad sustainable design and construction, but we didn't articulate specifically what that looks like. Even like, within ours, you got to make sure, I'll use a pool is not the best place where you always would put a solar panel, right? So trying to understand and I don't know yet from their construction, will they get the return in doing it? Or what does that look like from a cost benefit analysis? Meaning benefit, not just from the pocket, but benefit, is it a showpiece to say they did it, or is it really going to do something to our net carbon footprint?
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I want to give our other county commissioners a chance to ask a question. I know that we're running out of time, but I do think because our next meeting isn't until 5 p.m., we could run over by a few minutes. Is that okay with, are you all right with us going on? Okay. All right. Are you guys okay with that? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that we get this, everything on the table that is niggling in people's minds. So Commissioner Powell.
Thank you. So I want to tell you that I really appreciate your ultra conservative approach. I have that same mindfulness. Like, I want to know when it's going to be profitable, if nothing else is. And so I appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, for carrying our priorities forward. I think that's really important. Board priorities, sometimes they don't get talked about so much in some of our committee meetings, but this has been a marriage of many of our board priorities. And I can tell that you've been a strong voice. The dollar amount of our investment does need to match public benefit. And the public benefit piece, like we're addressing different things in our priorities. But I, as many of you know, served on the Catawba area plan as a stakeholder for 2 years of my life about what the community wanted to see in the Catawba area. And they wanted to see protection of natural resources. It is part of our environmental leadership action plan. It is one of our top priorities. And so for me to support this, I need to know the specifics of what the environmental stewardship commitments are. And right now it is hazy to me. I'm thankful that they're willing to do a tree canopy study because, you know, looking at the tree canopy of the entire county, this is significant, and it is in critical watershed. And it's like Commissioner Rodriguez McDowell said, it looks far away, but it's not. And we need to be mindful about the public benefit with public dollars. So the things that are important to me, I'm just going to go over quickly because I think that if we go forward, I hope there's a commitment for them to work with park staff and Louisa staff on stormwater management. It sounds like that, you know, the bare minimum requirements for stormwater management, even in critical watershed, are not, in my mind, good enough to protect the Catawba. So how can we go above and beyond minimum with the help of, you know, Rusty, Roselle, and team? So stormwater management, they've committed to protecting as much green space as possible. And I think when they work with Park and Rec has the expertise and the forester to help with ideas. And then for tree canopy, if, you know, quite often in construction, we just saw it with the wastewater treatment plant, they kind of just wipe out the entire forest. And so if that's going to be the case, if they're not, whatever happens from the study about how much they're going to protect and preserve, there's still going to be a need to replace. And so what is their commitment for replacing the tree canopy with natives? And I have asked several times and never gotten an answer, but what is the estimated impervious footprint? Because there will be a significant environmental impact, not just from this facility, but also from all of the traffic that's going to come to this area. There's no doubt there's going to be an impact. And how do we do the best to protect the environment? And those are all my questions for now, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Powell. And you reminded me that I wanted to ask about the specific wiping out of trees and then putting back. Like I remember in Matthews, we had a situation where there was a requirement, you know, before they put in this apartment complex, they had to not wipe out the trees, and then they just did it anyway and said, oh, we'll just pay the fee. You know, I really want to make sure, and I feel like BMOC is going to be a better partner than that story, but I want to know if there's a way we can build in consequences or something that is stronger than just, oh, take our word for it, we're not going to do that. We just really have to be careful. So thank you for that. And Commissioner Griffin, did you have some questions?
Just a couple comments. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I've had a Zoom call with some of the gentlemen over there on the wall. And let me first say, I love economic development. I love Charlotte's growth. It's real important to me. I think I shared this with you earlier. This is my hometown. I was born here, and for decades, I'd say I'm from Charlotte. People say you're from Charlottesville, you're from Charlotte, you're from Charleston. Now I can be in Manhattan and they know exactly where Charlotte's located. And just last week I was in Hawaii and I said, I'm from Charlotte, and people knew exactly what I was talking about. So this type of investment and program is super important for the community, and I absolutely support it generally. As I said to you earlier, I'm concerned more about the upward mobility piece and getting something memorialized in the agreement, not necessarily quotas, but some relationship in terms of reporting. As Charlotte has grown, we have a gap now. We have people doing extraordinarily well and people doing extraordinarily poor. So we spend millions of taxpayers' dollars on this side of the aisle with upward mobility and workforce development. It would be lovely to have a demonstration project where things are memorialized in such a way that you would work with the counties, work with the city and counties workforce development programs to resource some of your talent that you're going to be using at that site. And you mentioned $25, but as you subcontract out some of your seasonal vending, they may operate on $11 an hour perspective to make a profit. So I would be very much interested in terms of some memorialization of some of the community benefits in the agreement, not from a quota gotcha perspective, but from a reporting perspective in terms of as we send people to you or you ask for folk. If they don't qualify, we're not asking, I wouldn't be asking you to hire people who are not prepared. But that sends a message back to us that we need to do a better damn job of preparing people to come out and take advantage of those jobs. So I would certainly be concerned from that perspective of some memorialization for upward mobility to make sure we can spread the wealth in Mecklenburg County. So I have other questions, but I'll send them to the county manager through the committee and you can be responsive to that. But if just some memorialization would be great. We have dozens of economic development projects in Mecklenburg County over the last decade or so. But as I look through some of those public reports, you don't see the memorialization of some of those commitments. They're like good faith commitments. And I think in a partnership, we want you to be successful and we want our community to be successful in terms of community benefits. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Griffin. I really appreciate your point about the use of like subcontractors and ways to wiggle around the requirements and the things that we're talking about here. So thank you for bringing that perspective. Does anyone have any further questions or comments they would like to make before we close out this item? Are we doing a vote or are we just indicating our support?
On that
So-
requested action.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we recommend support of Project Breakpoint with financial support not to exceed $30 million and to advance this request to the full Board of County Commissioners seeking its approval to include directing the county manager to negotiate and execute a contract.
Second.
All right, the motion has been made by Commissioner Durrell and seconded by Commissioner Meyer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I believe are there any nays? Okay, I believe that was unanimous. So thank you everyone for your unanimous support on this, moving this item forward to the full board. And thank you, Deputy County Manager Leslie Johnson. Appreciate your just
Absolutely.
your commitment in this project, has really been evident, and just want to thank you for, all that you're doing to make sure that our goals are really being heard. I feel that.
And I'll echo, I'm not trying to sell it. I'll just echo, they have been a great partner to work with. They've been responsive, they've heard, they understood, they've been willing to agree to things that otherwise that when we've had some other conversations, it may not have been this easy. And I feel confident that they will continue to be that great partner for our community.
Thank you.
Is there a timeline when they make a decision?
Sure. Thank you.
I don't know if they want to make that comment at the time. I don't think at this time they're
Are we looking at
positioned to say
August or maybe-
that. I
Okay.
don't think that will, but what I will, the good thing is that we've gotten your endorsement to continue those to proceed, right? So what Shaw and I will continue to do, as well as the economic development team, start really having additional conversations with them and start getting this other detail, seeing how quickly they'll think about the tree canopy studies, those other types of things, so that we can get you a little bit more detailed information. I don't want to commit to when this is going to come before you. It will either be July or the August meeting. But I'm hoping to have more information at that time.
But is it moving at a pace that keeps us competitive with Ohio? Like,
Yes.
timelines? Okay,
Well, I think we're good.
okay.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we're going to continue our meeting and it will be in a closed session. So I will need a motion to go into closed session and we will ask our guests to exit.
So
So
moved.
moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
All right, a motion is made by Commissioner Jarrell and seconded by Commissioner Meyer. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Second.
okay, so the motion to go out of closed session was made by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Jarrell. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we're out of closed session, that's unanimous. Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Shahi.
Yeah, so did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. So Sean, Clay, I want to ask you guys,
Forgot to.
when we're looking at projects that we invest in, and there are times we may lose a project to a competing community. There's obviously no economic impact to us, but when we lose a project to a community that's in close proximity, let's just say Iredell County, York County, Cabarrus, whatever, right? Can we start to find out what the economic impact is for us, though? Because I don't think it's a lose-lose situation. I think, one second, it still is a benefit when a project is in close proximity to us. There has to be a way for us to know what that impact is from a regional perspective, right? If, sales tax, they're coming into Mecklenburg County, is there a way to measure that so that we can see, even if we don't gain that project, it's still in such close proximity where Mecklenburg County still benefits?
That'd be a good piece. There'd be a few ways that you could probably track that. Travel data. To and from, basically trip data. So it would take a few sources, but you can basically figure out trip data. So if I have an office in Gaston County, I can do inbound from where, outbound to where. So sometimes there's trade-offs because if that company moves to a different location, some of our folks may go there, some of their folks may come here. It can be done, and it'll be a thesis level homework.
Well, I don't want to give you a heavy type of assignment, but I would like, at some point, I do think that it would be beneficial to the ED committee for us to sort of be able to understand, or if there was any level of modeling so that we could figure out that something is not potentially a total loss. I mean, there is still benefit because of who we are as Charlotte, right? People would rather come here to shop than somewhere else, right? So-
Right, I think that was one of the conversations we had with Brandon at one point, because folks might live in Charlotte, they go commute there, or vice versa.
Right.
They live there and they have to go shop here, so that's kind of hard to find out that number specifically
Gotcha.
in regards of like housing, shopping, utilities and all that, so.
Yeah. Understood, yeah.
So we tested once.
anybody to them.
They're the regional partner, they collect all of the data on where projects are moving between Charlotte and the other 14 counties that surround. And they have an extensive data team, so that might be a good project.
All right,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
all right, sure. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, that was aye. That was unanimous. We are in closed session. I mean, we're adjourned.
Have you,
Got a proxy.
oh, what's your proxy?